That's. I've been piercing now for close to 12 years. That's not really including the apprenticeship. Let me get this going here. I actually started out in the Kitchener area in Ontario, moved on to Toronto. Me and a buddy ended up opening a shop out in Bolton. But about 6 years ago, I ended up moving out here, and I've been working at Iron Lotus ever since then. Originally, though, a little bit about myself. Originally, I was actually trying to become a baseball player. Unfortunately, a bad injury to my ankle kind of sidelined that whole track, as life likes to do to you sometimes. I actually did end up graduating high school, and I was in college by the age of 17 for computer programming. As time went on, kind of realized it really wasn't my bag. So I ended up getting away from that and just decided to drive forklifts for the next little while until I found out what it is I truly wanted to do. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about a band by the name of Eve 6. They were a one-hit wonder, unfortunately, but they were a band that kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities of what can actually be done to the human body. From there, I ended up looking up places like BME was a big contributing factor to myself, and it's still nowadays it's still a big online community where you guys can get a lot of information for all sorts of body mods, whether it's piercings, tattoos, scarification, implants, any sort of the extreme stuff too. That's definitely one of your mainstays right there. Now, obviously, everyone here is looking to get themselves, maybe, possibly, their foot in the door to get into the mod industry. Some ways to do it, first and foremost, and I can't stress this enough to you guys, is first, be a good client. Come in, get some work done. Be friendly, obviously. But if you show an interest, first and foremost, it's going to show us that you actually care about it, that it's something that you might have a passion towards. If you just walk in the door and ask for an apprenticeship, we're probably not going to take you very seriously. We might be an open community, more than willing to teach you anything that we want, but to get your foot in the door, it's a little bit harder than that. So when you get stuff done, just be friendly. Ask a lot of questions, especially us piercers. We do love to geek out. We'll explain things till you're basically bored senseless, if you'll let us, actually. Now, when you actually do try to get yourself an apprenticeship, there are two main ways of doing so. The first one is you pay for it, just like any other schooling that you guys will take. You guys go to college, university, you do end up paying for it. Most apprenticeships, depending on who you're going for or who you're working under, and if it's piercings, if it's tattoos, if you're looking to go on to the more extreme things, can usually run anywhere from about $4,000 to $10,000. Usually the tattooing side of things can be a little more pricey. A lot of the times, though, it is kind of chunked out, so you're not throwing all that money down all at once. Same thing with colleges. If you pay for it, though, generally, at least for piercings, your apprenticeship can be anywhere from a year or two minimum. Tattoos can sometimes be as long as 5 years. It is a long haul, and it's that way for a reason. And a lot of the times, too, anywhere from 75 to 90% of that apprenticeship, you guys aren't going to be getting paid. So, guys, keep that in mind, too, eh? This is definitely a young person's game when starting out. The ones that are definitely within the industry more preferred are the ones that you guys don't actually pay for. But what ends up happening with those is you do work in the shop. So you'll be the desk girl, the helper, just doing things around the shop, keeping things running smoothly that a lot of us artists don't really have the time to actually get down and do ourselves. Usually, this is about a year or two minimum, or until the people at the shop actually have become accustomed to you. Maybe they trust you, things like that. We actually know that you can show up regularly, put the effort forward. We know that in the end, you'll actually work out. After that, though, it's still the minimum 2 years. After that, for the actual apprenticeship itself, just because you've been working in the shop for X amount of time doesn't mean that you get a head start in the actual apprenticeship itself. And most of the time, for all apprenticeships, is anywhere from a minimum of 4 to 7 days a week. If it's something you think you guys are going to pull off part-time, it's probably not going to be working out very well. The good thing about the free apprenticeships is a lot of the times you can still get paid. You'll still be the helper. You'll still do the daily duties of any desk person. You'll just also be doing the apprenticeship at the same time as well. Certain things to expect, though, when actually starting. If you actually do get your foot in the door for the first time, it's definitely very slow moving. You take baby steps the entire way. It's all about learning routines, figuring out how to do specific things and do it properly and safely to not only keep yourself safe, but more importantly, to keep the clients safe. So a good foundation is always going to be key. And what it does is lots of repetition. Every single day, you guys will be doing the same thing over and over and over and over. This kind of prevents you from getting bad habits. Bad habits can, in turn, like I said, maybe injure the clients, and that's the last thing that we need. Once the apprenticeship is over, or at least getting close towards the end, and you guys start actually doing procedures, here in Winnipeg specifically, you do have to write a test. The test is about 50 questions or so, and I believe that it's a 77% that you have to get to in order to pass. Just because you pass, though, doesn't necessarily mean you're legally allowed to actually do any sort of procedures at that point in time. You do actually have to apply for a license. Background checks are done and all that kind of fun jazz. And do keep in mind that unless you're working in an established licensed body piercing or body tattooing place, you cannot actually apply for a license at all. Some things to expect, though, once you actually get your apprenticeship started, right? Daily duties. It might seem kind of mundane, but everything has to be kept clean. You know, we do deal with bodily fluids on a very, very regular basis. Even people just walking into the shop. You guys don't generally wash your hands before you come in. So cleaning and disinfecting all counters are done on a daily basis. Sweeping and mopping definitely has to get done, especially in winters. Garbages constantly have to be taken out. You can't have full garbages sitting around with people's bloods and anything lying around like that. Organizing the display, this is more for the body piercing side of things. That thing is a constant battle. You will basically be in that display case probably multiple times a day, fixing and readjusting. Dealing with clients and anyone who phones, answering their questions, booking in appointments, taking deposits, things like this are something that happens on a very regular basis. A lot of the times, even though I'm the piercer, I'll still book in people for their tattoos and everything like that. So it's a shared responsibility by everybody who's actually in the shop as well. There's also a lot of Facebook and social media stuff that we have to deal with. Nowadays, especially with these things very rampant, a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable keeping the I can't speak today. Anonymity of just sending a quick message. It's a lot easier. You can actually ask your questions properly and not come off maybe so shy and timid, because sometimes we can sometimes seem a little intimidating. There's obviously the tools themselves have to get cleaned on a regular basis. Generally, we don't like them sitting around for too long. So cleaning the tools, whether for the piercings, the clamps, the receiving tubes, obviously the jewelry that we need to do can sometimes be a little tedious at times. For the tattoo guys, the tattoo tubes themselves have to get cleaned almost on a daily basis. This actually requires suiting up. We are head to toe, full body protection for the most part. There's also the supplies that we have to make sure that are always ready, sterile, to go. Things like gauze, needles, the jewelry themselves. These things all have to be packaged and ready to go at a constant notice. The tattooists, obviously, they have to have their drawings all set up, ready to go. Making stencils before the actual tattoo is definitely a daily duty as well. Any client that comes in, we also do have to fill out paperwork for everybody. So there's the release forms that are involved with that. No matter what the procedure is, if there's any sort of skin breaking, whether it be a piercing, a tattoo, stretching, things like that, everything has to be documented. No matter what you do in the shop, generally it's written down, so we make sure that it has been done. There's also setting up of the rooms. Each piercing, tattoo, any modification that you guys do get done is generally set up a little differently. Like when I do a belly button piercing, generally I have people laying down. I'll use different supplies, whether it be the needle, the jewelry, the things like that. And obviously with tattooing, you know, if someone's tattooing their leg, the positions are going to be set up a little different. Things have to be covered, so in case anybody does bleed and drip, that it's not getting on a surface that we can't obviously already clean. Obviously, there's also things like taking care, how to take care of your procedures after they are done. So vocalizing the actual aftercare itself can sometimes take a few minutes. A lot of the times the tattoo artist will wait until the procedure is actually done. There's usually anywhere from a 10 to 15 minute period where once the tattoo's finished, you just got to let it bleed. So this is a lot of times when they actually sit around and chat about this. A lot of us piercers will actually kill time while we're cleaning our clients, marking them, things like that. A lot of people coming in to get piercings or even tattoos can be generally really nervous. And a lot of times explaining things calmly can actually settle your nerves a little bit for them. And obviously the best part of our job is actually we pierce and we tattoo. Depending on the time of year, It can be really busy or it can be really slow. Winters are pretty much a dead time for us. Summer's extremely busy. Everybody's off work. Everybody wants to show off their cool new art they had done. The best thing, though, about this industry is every single day is different. You can walk in the shop and have no idea what's about to happen. It can be a good thing, but at the same time, it can be kind of boring. But you got to take these things and just kind of roll with the punches at times. A lot of people within this industry, excuse me, there's a lot of continued education that is involved, just like with any other service that you're going to get into. First aid is generally done on a regular basis. Minimum, I think the legal requirements is that it be done every 3 years. Bloodborne pathogens, this is where we're taught about hepatitis, HIV, tuberculosis, things like that, and how to keep everything sterile and clean. Generally, these certificates that we get are only valid for a year. Everything's changing on the very regular basis, so we need to keep up with what's happening in the medical community. The APP and health educators. The APP is an association of professional piercers. They are a community, a nonprofit community that basically, excuse me, they help educate us. Health educators specifically talks about bloodborne pathogens and sterilization. And the APP is basically run by piercers and teaches piercers. I mean, obviously they teach tattoo artists and mod artists as well, but it's geared towards piercers in general. They actually hold a conference every single year down in Vegas. Personally, I've been down 3 times. It's a week-long conference, and all it is just constant teaching. They bring in specialists, whether they'll be doctors, oral hygienists. They even bring in jewelry makers to kind of keep us on up-to-date as to what to expect. A lot of the classes will involve doctors going over anatomy. We didn't take schooling like that. Granted, we can sit there and read books. Nothing is better than actually having a doctor explain things to you and actually show you as to what to expect and what to look for. Dental hygienists usually come in and show us all about facial anatomy, things like that. The jewelry makers will actually show us new techniques that they are actually making their jewelry with, the standards that the actual materials that we're using should be set towards. And there's also people who have 10 to 20 years experience actually in the industry themselves. They've seen everything, they've done everything, they know what to expect. So a lot of the times they'll show, or they'll have classes in technique itself. So people who have only been in the industry for a year or two, they might have been taught one way, but there's always more than one way to do a simple procedure. This can kind of be a little eye-opening, show you something a little differently, how to do something, and it might be a little easier for you. There's also roundtables where a lot of us piercers will just sit around and chat and talk about, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and a lot of times it can actually show you different ways to do things, not only with the procedures themselves, but the jewelry to stock, as well as anything when dealing with clients themselves too. Now, there is a lot of mundane tasks, like I was saying before, that is involved with this industry. It's all not, acting like a rock star and being all cool. Specifically on the piercing side of things, there is thousands of packages that you will have to make on a regular basis. Every single piece of jewelry always comes in a pre-made package. Generally, depending on the shop, you can either buy them pre-made. I personally make them myself. So sometimes taking that iron and making 1,000 packages can sometimes take a few days even. Then there's also packaging, inventory. When you're counting a couple thousand pieces of jewelry, it can sometimes take quite a while. Just like with any other service industry, there's dealing with those angry customers that there's nothing you can do to really help them. All you can kind of do is try and put that fake smile on and do your best to help them out. Sadly to say this, but the pay at first is not going to be the greatest. Like I said, your apprenticeship generally isn't paid, and a lot of the times you have to build up your clientele. Just like with massage therapists, hairdressers, a lot of people have their people that they go to already. So you kind of have to work up that clientele basis, and sometimes that can take a number of years. A lot of people, their first 5 years, they can make it, but they don't start making any good amounts of money until after 5 to 10 years minimum. Don't get me wrong, there are chances that you can get into a good shop that happens to be really busy, has a really good reputation, but the chances of that are pretty slim. Generally, you'll start at a shop that'll just take you in, and then you got to kind of work your way up from there. There can be long hours. I personally do Monday to Saturday from 11 till 8, so that's 6 days a week. And I do that basically throughout the year. We don't generally take too many vacations. I think I take a week off at Christmas, and that's all I take. You also have to keep in mind there are clients that aren't always going to take your procedures very well. So you have clients that will be passing out. A lot of them, if they do pass out, can end up puking. And unfortunately, that's our side. We got to clean up. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of good things that are involved. One of my favorite things is I don't have to get up early. This is usually the earliest I'll be getting up, like today. Getting up before 10 is not something I do regularly. There's no real dress code, right? So you don't have to wear a uniform. All you gotta do is just make sure you're not wearing super baggy clothing so it doesn't accidentally dip or touch something that shouldn't be touched. You get to work at your own pace, so there's nobody over top of you being a tyrant, saying you have to go do this, you have to go do that. We all generally work for ourselves, but you gotta remember, if you're being lazy about something, you're gonna fall behind, and next thing you know, you're gonna need to catch up, or you're gonna have to, sacrifice some piercings or tattoos just to get your work done. You do get to meet a lot of awesome people. A lot of my best friends have been clients of mine that have walked in. There are other artists in the industry themselves. We definitely have an eclectic version, or an eclectic amount of people. We also get to meet, artists, not other artists, celebrities, as well as athletes. Generally come through our shops quite often. You get to help a lot of people through some hard times. People coming in, maybe they've broken up with their girlfriend or their boyfriend. Their parents have gotten divorced. I even had one client who I had done some piercings on her, and after it was all said and done, she broke down crying in front of me. At first, I thought it was maybe just because it was a little painful for her, and she didn't expect it to be that way. After having a few minutes of discussion with her, she actually informed me that she had actually been raped about 6 months prior. And by doing this kind of a procedure on her is her way of reclaiming her own body. So when you get to help people through these situations, it definitely makes things a lot more worthwhile. Not only that, but you also get to be a part of people's coming of age. So, anybody who's the age of 14 to 18, generally you'll get these piercings done, and next thing you know, you guys will feel like an adult. There are definitely a lot of other career opportunities. Say if you guys get your foot in the door, say it doesn't end up working out for you guys, there are other ways that you can take them. I have friends who have become nurses, dental hygienists. I have a friend who is the sterile technician at a hospital in Calgary now. He pierced for about 10 years or so. When the slump happened, he got out of the industry, and next thing you know, he's working at a hospital. There are other arts when it comes to things like painting, sculpting, writing, especially fashion and photography are a lot of offshoots of our industry. Everybody here everybody in our community is very open to self-expression. You'll never be discouraged from doing anything. So it's really good to have people around you when you're saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. They'll actually encourage you, and when you show them your work done, it makes you feel a lot better about certain things. Now, over the last 15 years or so, there have been a lot of changes. It's had its up and down. There have been times, like in the mid-90s, piercings and tattoos were extremely popular, thanks to bands and Much Music and MTV because of Aerosmith and such like that. There's been a resurgence happening over the last little while. So thankfully, if you guys get your foot in the door now, you'll actually see the benefits from it. There are a lot of higher standards that have been set within the community, also by the community. We do like to self-regulate. We do like to keep our standards a little bit higher than what city regulations like to apply on us. So certain procedures, there are certain things we used to do back in the day that we don't generally do so much nowadays anymore, whether they just be unsafe or just flat out dangerous. Better quality jewelry, not only the standards for the materials themselves, but the shapes and the companies that we buy from. A lot of people don't realize that metals can come in different qualities. If something is, say like with steel, you'll see most places will carry something called 316 LVM. That's not necessarily the highest quality that you guys can get out there. So make sure you guys do your research, okay? The tools and the supplies that we use have changed over the years. On the piercing side of things, even just in the last 6 months, something has come out called an O-needle. I know you guys probably won't know what that is. It's basically a needle that's not pointed. In the tattoo industry, there's been new guns that have come out that are pneumatic. They don't use electricity, they actually use air pressure. So you can actually sterilize the entire machine rather than just keeping everything bagged. So little things like this do change over time. Even in the piercing side of things, surface piercings, they're only about 15 years old. They may seem like they've been around for forever, but they really haven't been. Micros only came out less than 10 years ago. I think it was 7 years that the first ones were actually really done. It's become a lot more socially acceptable and family friendly too. So going out there and telling someone that you're a tattoo artist, you don't look like or sound like a criminal or just a plain old badass anymore. We actually see a lot of families coming in, mothers, fathers coming in with their kids, letting them get a piercing. Maybe they're all getting matching tattoos, things like that. Thankfully, it's all just shows like Miami Inc., things like that. As much as we hate these shows within the industry, they have done a lot to help us out. Social media, whether it's Facebook, Tumblr, YouTube, even Instagram, has done a lot for the industry itself. It's making us a lot more accessible, so you guys can actually ask us questions a lot easier. It's actually become a teaching tool as well. There's specifically one, the Modified World on YouTube, is a guy, JC Potts, who has been teaching not only practitioners in the piercing industry, but also teaching the general public as to what to look for, what to expect, and to show you guys to not settle for anything less than the best. It's definitely brought our community closer. We are able to actually discuss within ourselves rather than just going to these conventions and that's the only time we get to speak with each other. We can just basically shoot messages back and forth nowadays. Hey, I did this. Hey, I did that. So it definitely has made everything a lot easier. And also we've gotten away from the whole don't go to that guy down the street anymore. Make sure you come see me. A lot of times nowadays it's, oh, that person does a great job. Make sure you just, you get this person, not that person. Now, if you guys are looking to really get into this industry, one thing that we look for, definitely, is ambition and passion. If you can show a general interest in what we're doing, and actually showing it a little bit of respect, it's definitely a good thing to start off with. You definitely have to be patient but hardworking. A lot of people in this industry, we might look like we're slackers, but we put in a lot of hours and we put in a lot of effort into what we actually do. You have to be caring and approachable, definitely modest and humble. Anybody who acts like a rock star in this industry, you're not going to go very far. Right? You're not any different than the person at the next shop. You're not any different than the person sitting on the bus next to you. Okay. One thing you do need to know is humility as well. You're not going to please everybody. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody's human, and you just got to learn from those things and move on. Some few things though that we definitely hate seeing is just flat out arrogance. Don't act like you're better than anyone else. Anybody who's lazy or closed-minded and arrogant or ignorant. Sorry. We already get a lot of slack for the way we look on a general basis. Don't put that out there for everyone else to see. Now, a little advice, though, when it comes to this industry. This is something that I love and I respect, and I've been at it for way too long now. And it's something that you guys should be doing the same thing towards, right? If you show it the respect and your patience, your diligence, and your hard work, this industry will give you far more back than you put into it than you can actually understand.